You would think that that would be evidence. How do you start to identify when someone's actually withholding so many secrets? Because the fact that he was able to do all of that and have such a background that he never got found out is crazy to me. And if 10% really are all those things, how do you start to know if they're lying or not, and then pull out any secrets that maybe they're trying to keep from you?
I would actually flip that on its axis.
Okay.
It's not your job to worry about other people. That's the F in the ISFJ. You feel like, and society has put a rubric on you where you feel like you are responsible for worrying about other people. That's why women end up oftentimes feeling like they have to please others. It's their responsibility to make others feel good. What I would recommend is that we completely change that mindset, right? The first thing that every human being, and especially for this conversation we're having, it would mean the world to me if every woman who hears this conversation, the first thing that she asks herself, the first statement that goes through her head every time she meets a new male is 1 in 10. 1 in 10. Is this person in front of me one out of the 10 that is going to be on this spectrum? First question, is this person one of the 10? That doesn't mean you don't talk to anybody. That doesn't mean you question them. It doesn't mean you assume they are. But you ask yourself the question. Right now, you're not asking yourself that question. Everybody comes with a blank slate. Everybody comes with an opportunity. Benefit of the doubt. We should change that rubric. This is not a benefit of the doubt type of world that we live in. We now live in a world where we should say, are you 1 of the 10? The second thing that women should pay attention to, how quickly do you like somebody? Because the faster you like them
really quickly, Andrew.
You need to slow yourself down because you already know what's going to happen if you like them too fast. They're going to get your trust, and they don't deserve your trust yet. People who are not nefarious are oftentimes the hardest people to like. They're socially awkward. They're a little bit rude. They're kind of rough around the edges. So it's you don't fall in love with them very quickly, but they're probably very honest people. They're honest, which is exactly why they don't know how to manipulate the environment, manipulate your experience to make you like them and trust them so quickly. So when you're dealing with somebody that's a little bit like aggravating or irritating, chances are they're not trying to manipulate you. But if you're dealing with somebody who like, I really like that person. They always know what to say. They totally get me. Hold on. Time out. No like trust. Am I liking them too fast? Have I already started trusting them? And are they the 1 in 10? If you just ask yourself those two questions and you're constantly reminding yourself that those two things exist, you're going to slow the process down. We have a concept in espionage called time, distance, and change in direction. And that concept basically means that you need to create time, space, so that because time will tell you if something is real or not. You need to create distance. When you're always together, then it's the pattern is set, and it's harder to see changes and deviations from the pattern than when you're physically apart, right? So it's like the reason we don't move in too fast with a boyfriend or move in too fast with a girlfriend is because once you're living on top of each other, it's very hard to see how the other person responds to the distance element. Instead of dating every day, we date every 3 or 5 or 12 days, right? Like give yourself distance and give yourself time to find the interruptions in the pattern. Give that manipulator space and time to screw up. Because someone who's genuine is going to be very consistent because they are genuinely demonstrating who they are. And then change in direction, like I was telling you about testing earlier, you want to make changes. Changes in direction will tell you a lot about how a person reacts to change. And if you're the one dictating the change, it tells you a lot about how they react to you being in control. A fair and equitable partner understands. Sometimes you're in control, sometimes I'm in control because it's a transactional relationship. A nefarious or malicious partner will never accept that you're the one making a change. They will always get upset about it and they will turn that against you.
So what about those scenarios? And because I love that breakdown, but the space thing almost, for me, I get why you're saying it, but there is something to someone who's trying to manipulate or lie or deceive you, use that space as a way to not have to keep interacting with you, giving you information that maybe then later they forget, right? Because, liars, you almost have to keep track of what they say to then say, let's say 6 months down the line, hang on a minute, that didn't jive with something else they said down here.
So when you're talking about someone with malicious intent, it's actually the other way around. People with malicious intent want to reduce that space. The reason they have space in the beginning, so think about Dirty John again. Dirty John was on a dating app. So he was cultivating multiple cons at one time. Well, the only way he can cultivate that many cons is by being distant from all of them.
Right.
But as he started to hone in on which ones were the most susceptible, his job was to close distance as quickly as possible. Think of it like a lion hunting a gazelle. A lion is going to sit and watch the herd and find the sick and the elderly of the herd. And then when the herd starts to run, that lion or lioness will pick the slowest one to attack and then dedicate all of their resources into closing the distance and attacking that one prey that is most susceptible to them. That's exactly what Dirty John was doing. That is what the Tinder swindler was known to do as well, was to cultivate multiple cons until the one showed itself as most susceptible, and then very quickly close distance and introduce that manipulative behavior. And there is a process to manipulation that's important to understand, and I'm sure we'll get to it. But when you start to see that manipulative behavior take hold, if you've done a good job of, is this person 1 of the 10? Am I liking them too fast? Have I used time, distance, and change in direction? And now, if you've done all of those things and you're like the Ted Bundy woman who was like, where are the door handles? Why is he a police officer in a Volkswagen? You've started collecting these data points of evidence that you should not trust the person. And that's the moment where she jumped out of a moving car. We all have to accept that sometimes to keep ourselves safe, that is what we must do. We must be willing to jump out of a rolling car. No matter what society thinks of us, our safety is our responsibility. Not the police, not mom and dad, not our husband, not our spouse. Our safety is our responsibility. And if that means that your parents are going to yell at you because you come back with torn jeans and a scuffed elbow, and they never believe that you saved your own life, to hell with them. You just saved your own life. Who cares what society thinks? There has to be a time when we're willing to challenge the societal norm and understand that the societal norm is not there for our best interests. It's there for the best interests of societal order. It's there for 90% of circumstances. It's not there for the 10% of bad guys who are out there looking for us.
When I think about Dirty John's, the daughter who ended up, stabbing him, to think through what, that my life is at stake at this point, so I will kill back, right?
Yeah.
It had to take that for her to then make sure that he never does that again. Obviously, I'm not suggesting people just go out and kill people, but the fact that it was like her life or his, she ended up having to take his. But I think of how many of us don't feel the threat in that way, right, where it's your life or death. But a lot of time it is from like a emotional standpoint, like it's the death of your emotions, the death of your soul, when someone can do something like that so extreme, and I think a big thing is you end up not only not trusting other people, you end up not trusting yourself.
Right, and that distrust of yourself is one of the key things that a manipulator is looking for. Because if you already don't trust yourself, what that means is you put your trust somewhere else. Because we all have to trust. We all need a North Star. We all need a guiding light, a compass. So when a manipulator sees someone who doesn't trust themselves, it's the perfect opportunity to step in and be the thing that they trust. Again, I was mentioning how I know that I'm privileged to be sitting on this show with you as a male on the show. And I know it's not just because you like my hair or you think I'm friendly.
Your hair is dope, though, and you are very friendly.
It's because CIA has a process for manipulating people. It's what CIA does. It's how it keeps America safe. CIA's job is to manipulate foreign targets into providing secrets to the United States that give the United States an unfair advantage in military, economics, and political power. Our job is to follow a very systematic manipulation process and identify the people who are susceptible to that specific manipulation process. It's what we're designed to do. And one of the prime things that we look for when we're cultivating a target, just like Dirty John, just like the Tinder swindler, when we're cultivating one out of many, many targets, what we're looking for is who is the person that demonstrates an inherent distrust for themselves. And then as we get to know and find those people, we then start to look for what the source is of their distrust of themselves. And when we find that the source of their distrust stems back to their childhood,
is that typically where it comes from?
It comes from different places. So there are some people who distrust themselves because they made poor decisions in college, or they made bad decisions with money when they were, in their 20s or 30s. So there's all sorts of different places where people start to doubt themselves. But when you find someone whose self-doubt stems back to their childhood, now what you know is you have somebody who is deeply conditioned to be dependent on someone else. So George Santos was a politician, a corrupt politician who lied about lied about everything, and still made it to Congress.
That sounds crazy.
When you look at his background, he came from a very poor Brazilian family where he was one of several children, where mom and dad were highly successful, and the children were kind of left to fend for themselves with a rotating door of nannies and whatever else, right? So in this Brazilian corrupt family, this is where he kind of built his foundation. This is where his wiring was made. So is anybody surprised that as he became a 40-year-old male in the United States, in a predominantly paternal society, that he felt absolute comfort lying about his educational background, about his work history, about everything else to win a vote? And then is it not the ultimate con to basically con a constituency into voting for you? I mean, that is exactly how manipulation works. You manipulate the emotions of people who are susceptible to that manipulation. So he knew what the right message was with the right congressional district to get voted by saying the right things, just like spies collect assets by knowing what to say and how to change the vein of trust so that the target trusts the spy or trusts the con man, or a constituency trusts their congressional representative, or somebody trusts their doctor, or somebody trusts the CEO of a company.
If you want to learn how to spot a manipulator, a con man, or a psychopath, then click here right now.
When you put the four of those things together, you kind of create the perfect concoction for a con man to step in, and they leave you high and dry, broke, alone, and dejected.
I can't save people from them. And as much as it breaks my heart, I have to detach from them. And it does break my heart. It does break my heart.